Bore da, a diolch am ymuno gyda fi bore yma. Heddi byddai yn amlinellu fy ymlaenoriaethau ar gyfer y tymor ysgol hwn, y ddwy gongolfaen llythrennedd a rhifedd yn ogystal a'r gwaith ydyn ni'n neud i fynd i'r afel gyda'r prif rwystrau i gyrhaeddiad fel presenoldeb. As Education Minister, I've been clear that raising literacy and numeracy standards is my top priority. They're at the heart of ensuring every young person has the opportunity to reach their full potential. Like most countries across the world, we were disappointed but not surprised by the recent PISA results. Before the pandemic, Wales was making good and steady progress in both literacy and numeracy. I'm certain that our scores will rise again thanks to the programme of reforms that we are making, including our new curriculum. But the impact of the pandemic is long-lasting, and it continues to be felt all across the education system, particularly by learners. I will host and chair an Education Leaders Summit tomorrow. Together, we will discuss how we will drive up numeracy and literacy standards across Wales. That call to action will be at the heart of the work of the summit. We'll also discuss funding and how a fresh round of austerity imposed by the UK government has left us facing the most stark and painful budget decisions of the devolution era. Our overall budget in 2024-2025 will be worth £1.3 billion less in real terms than when it was set in 2021. However, despite the enormous challenges in making the draft budget, we've been able to reprioritise our spending plans to not just protect, but increase the funding that goes directly to schools. I spoke earlier about the long-lasting impact of the pandemic. We had been due to begin reducing funding for our successful COVID recovery programme. But because of the pandemic-related challenges still facing schools, I've decided to increase this funding. This will mean more money for our schools, and I'm also pleased to announce further support for the provision of free school meals to all primary children in Wales, part of our cooperation agreement. We've provided more than 15 million extra free school meals to primary school children of all ages since the policy was rolled out, and we're now making a further £3.3 million available to support councils and insulate them as much as possible from rising food costs by raising the unit rate per meal. Even with this additional funding, I am under no illusions that the coming year will be an incredibly difficult one for local authorities and schools because of the financial climate that we are all operating in. I will work with all organisations to find the best way possible for learners of all ages in Wales, recognising the enormous contribution the whole sector is making and continuing to forge the best way forward for all. I want to turn now to the work we are doing to improve attainment and to tackle the barriers to it. Attendance remains an issue in all parts of the UK following the pandemic. Improving attendance and getting our children and young people into full-time education is our national priority. I've taken a number of measures to tackle this issue, including setting up a national task force to provide strategic direction to improving school attendance and learner engagement. I was pleased to see recent figures showing an improvement in attendance, but there is no room for complacency. The task force is providing advice to me about how we build on these recent improvements, ensuring that this priority is seen through and providing the best education possible for all. But we won't stand still whilst we wait for the task force's recommendations. This week, we'll be launching a consultation about plans to set up a database of children who are not registered at school, not in receipt of education other than at school, or who are not known to the local authority as being suitably home educated. Missing education is itself a welfare issue, and the database proposals aim to support our commitment to the success and well-being of every learner, whatever their circumstance or setting. This is all, of course, in addition to the introduction of the new curriculum, a change which I'm pleased has been embraced by the schools and teachers I've been fortunate enough to meet over recent weeks. I hope this provides a flavour of the important work which we are taking forward over the coming weeks and months to help improve education in Wales and to ensure our children reach their full potential. Diolch yn fawr. Fe na I gymryd cwestiynau nawr. I'll take questions now, starting with Gareth Lewis from BBC Wales.
Bore da, Minister, good morning. If we could have the answers in English and Welsh, we'd be really grateful. I just wanted to ask you about Gylston Farm. What do you think the Welsh Government should do with it? And would you be able to be involved in that decision, given previous decisions that have been made on that?
Well, I have no role in that as Education Minister in any event. So Gylston Farm, we've seen the return of ospreys to the farm for the first time, I think, in over 2 centuries. And having taken expert advice, that set of recommendations has told us that there needs to be a zone of protection around the nests which have been discovered, which means that the original purposes for which the farm was purchased are more challenging. So the next steps now will be to look at the farm like any other Welsh Government asset in the context of the guidance and the frameworks that we have, and the Economy Minister will be making more announcements about that in due course. Mae'r datblygiad yma o'r adar yn dod nôl i fferm Gylston yma tro cyntaf mewn dros 2 ganrif fel o'n deall, wedi golygu bod ni wedi cael cyngor arbenigol ar sut i ddelio gyda'r datblygiad hwn, a maen nhw wedi rhoi cyngor i ni bod angen sicrhau ardal o amgylch y nyth sydd yn gwarchod ac yn diogelu'r adar. Felly mae hyn yn golygu na fydd y fferm yn bwrpasol ar gyfer yr hyn a fwriadwyd ar ei cyfer hi. Felly byddwn ni'n edrych ar y fferm fel unrhyw rhan arall o eiddo Llywodraeth Cymru o fewn y canllawiau a'r rheoliadau sydd gyda ni, a bydd Gweinidog Economy yn gwneud arganiad pellach am hwnnw maes o law.
Diolch. Unwaith eto yn Cymraeg a Saesneg os gwelwch yn dda. Senedd members are debating Senedd reform today with some quiet about the proposed closed list system. Do you support closed lists?
Yes, the government's policy is that the reform of the Senedd proceeds on that basis. And to be clear, this is a proposal which has received the support of the Senedd already. And so the reforms will proceed on that basis. And I think reform of the Senedd is a really important opportunity for us to ensure that Senedd has more capacity to scrutinise the work of ministers, which I think is a very good thing. Diolch yn fawr, Gareth. Next, Richard Morgan from ITV Wales.
Welsh Minister as well, please.
Indeed, forgive me. Mae'r polisi o'r rhestrau yn bolisi sydd yn rhan o'r cytundeb sydd gyda ni gyda Phlaid Cymru, a mae'r Senedd ei hun wedi pleidleisio o blaid hyn yn barod. Rwy'n credu bod diwygio'r Senedd yn gyfle pwysig i ni allu sicrhau bod gan y Senedd y capacity i graffu ar weinidogion ac i allu dywallu chyfrifoldebau, felly rwy'n cefnogi'r cynlluniau hynny'n fawr iawn. Richard Morgan next from ITV Wales.
Thanks, Minister. Yes, could I ask a question, please, about the vocational certificate of secondary education that is coming in 2027? Sounds all well and good, but there's quite a lot to it, a number of courses on offer. Is it likely to be another burden and expense for already hard-pressed staff and budgets in schools?
Well, Richard, I think this is a real opportunity, because what the new VCSEs do, in fact, is to streamline and rationalise the provision which already exists. And there are, many qualifications in the vocational space at the moment, and I think it can be challenging for learners to navigate their way through that. And what we see in these sets of proposals by Qualifications Wales is a more focused set of qualifications, which I think will make it easier for learners to engage with. I also think it'll make it easier for schools to teach. But I think there's a real opportunity here for schools and colleges to work together. And I really welcome the commitment Qualifications Wales has made to work with colleges to make sure these qualifications are both well designed and well delivered.
And on the same theme, can I ask if you think they'll travel well? Obviously, it's a Welsh idea. Do you think they'll have any value beyond Wales's borders?
Yes, certainly. One of the key things which exam regulators in all countries are required to do, and our regulators in Wales are obviously no different, is to ensure that qualifications both meet the needs of learners in the country for which they're responsible, but are also recognised and are portable. And I'm confident that is the case with this set of reforms, as indeed with all reforms that Qualifications Wales has brought in Wales. Nesaf Rhys Williams o ITN.
Gweinidog. Finland, Australia, New Zealand and Scotland have all seen significant drops in their PISA scores since they adopted curricula remarkably similar to Wales's new curriculum. Is any of this giving you pause for thought that this is really the answer to Wales's educational problems?
Well, the challenges which we saw in PISA, and by the way, this reflected data which we have from our own school system, which is much richer and much broader, in fact, than the PISA scores. And I think it's important to see that broader context, incidentally. But the reform programme that we have is, yes, about the curriculum, but about a range of other reforms as well, including around school improvement and teaching. And those reforms have actually been designed together with the OECD, which is the organisation which runs the PISA tests. Your question really is, what comparison do we have internationally to know that these reforms are likely to succeed? And I suppose the two countries I would point to as being consistently high performing, not just in PISA, but in terms of outcomes, which is the most important aspect, are New Zealand and Canada. And they remain, in this set of PISA results, very high performing systems. And the reforms which they've brought into their curricula very much reflect the same principles that we've introduced with the curriculum for Wales. So that's why I'm confident that the role of the new curriculum as part of that broader suite of reforms is the answer to some of the challenges that we have, and to make sure that our school system is future focused and fit for the modern world as well.
You spoke about the attainment gap. When this curriculum was first rolled out, experts at Cardiff University wrote a report warning they feared it would widen the gap between the richer and poorest pupils. And the authors say the government's effectively ignored this and changed nothing. Why is that?
I don't accept that, actually. And if you look at the PISA results, incidentally, they will show you that the attainment gap in Wales has narrowed.
Still far worse than it is in England.
Well, actually, the attainment gap in Wales is narrower. The point I'm making is this, though, that if you speak to heads who are focused on the work of closing that attainment gap in schools, they will say to you that the curriculum offers an opportunity to deliver that bespoke approach to learning, which can really excite and fire up those learners, some of whom may have found engagement challenging in the past. So I'm confident that the curriculum enables that to happen. However, it is absolutely important that we make sure that all schools in rolling out the curriculum are also delivering on that challenge of stretching all learners to reach their fullest potential. And we will obviously, as a government, keep that very much at the heart of our agenda as we work with schools and the other organisations in our school system.
Have you read that report, Minister?
Next question from Abby Whittick.
Morning, Minister. Can you give some more detail on the extra money for COVID recovery that you say you're increasing instead of decreasing? You mentioned that some of that's being used for the free primary school meals. Can you give some more information on how much extra money, where that money is coming from, and is that money going on those free meals?
Yes, so it's not going on those free meals. There are two sources of funding. So what I've done is increase the RRS funding, the fund which enables us to recruit and retain temporary teachers in schools, and that has been the programme which has enabled us to, or enabled schools to provide bespoke support for learners to respond to the challenges of COVID, which are still in our schools. So that was intended to be reduced this year, but it's been maintained at the level it was previously. And separately to that, what we have done is increase the unit rate for local authorities providing free school meals from £2.90, which is already higher than other parts of the UK, to £3.20. That is a separate source of funding that isn't coming out from the post-COVID funding.
New money, this post-COVID. How much money is coming?
It's the same level as last year, plus the 3.3 million from for free school meals. Yeah.
Second question. You mentioned this summit tomorrow, and you'll also know that the very critical Chief Inspector of Schools report is also out tomorrow that paints a very gloomy picture generally, you know, attainment in Welsh, literacy, almost everything across secondary schools, attendance, behaviour. You say there's the report, says that there's a problem recruiting teachers. You've said that yourself as well. With all the problems in schools and with all the behaviour, the attendance, the lack of money, the low morale, what would you say to somebody to encourage them to actually, if they are a bright graduate, come and be a teacher in Wales? What is working here that would make them come? What would you say to them?
Well, I'd encourage them to read the report from Estyn, which will also explain to them some of the successes in our school systems. And it's always important, I think, to see the complete picture in these, not least because of the hard work of heads and staff every day in schools who are having a fantastic impact on the lives of our young people, changing their lives and setting them up for life. And I thank them for all the work that they are doing. The report does set out a number of the challenges which we face in schools, and the purpose of the summit which I'm holding this week is to work with school and education leaders on the priorities in our school system, which are around attendance, they're around literacy and numeracy, our additional learning needs reform, curriculum design, and fundamentally excellent teaching. And what I know is that teaching provides, I think, almost uniquely, the opportunity of giving thousands, hundreds and thousands of young people the very best start in life. And I know whenever I go to schools, I talk to teachers who are motivated, despite the challenges that schools face, to do that work. It is incredible work that they do. And I think any young person who wants to make a significant contribution to the lives of people in Wales would do well to consider teaching as a means of doing that. Next question is from Claire Board.
So when the PISA results came out, Wales was bottom of the 4 UK nations. And in fact, Wales has been bottom of the 4 UK nations since at least 2006. What isn't clicking in Wales that's working for all the other countries in the United Kingdom?
Well, actually, the picture's slightly more nuanced than that. If you look at the figures in 2018, you'll have seen that Wales was the only part of the UK that was improving in all 3 domains of PISA. We've seen in the last set of PISA results right across the world the impact of COVID, which is variable across different countries. What we have been embarked on in Wales for a number of years is a programme of reform working together with the OECD in relation to our school system and how we can make sure it's fit for the future. And so that is partly about the curriculum, but as I was saying earlier, only partly about that. It's also about an approach to inspection. It's about an approach to school improvement, to the professional learning of teachers. And so there's a holistic vision which underpins the suite of reforms which we are introducing, some of which, incidentally, will not have yet impacted on the learners who took the PISA tests last year. So those reforms are in the system. They haven't yet been tested, as it were, through PISA. And I'm confident that coupled with the focus I'm bringing on literacy and numeracy, that they will mean that our results increase into the future and set us on that path to better outcomes overall.
And you mentioned budget issues from the UK government have been an issue when it's come to educational results in Wales. But what do you think the Welsh government could improve on? Yes, the UK government are providing the money, but it's still you making the decisions.
Yes, and I've just outlined to you what we are doing with that. I think it's, one shouldn't just set aside the funding challenges because they're very real. And what they have meant is incredibly difficult decisions which ministers right across the government have had to make in their budgets, which no minister wants to make and doesn't reflect our long-term preferences for the budget. But that is the reality. Our budget is worth £1.3 billion less. And in that context, every minister has had to make reductions in the budget. What I've been able to do, recognising the points which a number of colleagues have made this morning, is to protect and indeed increase the funding available to schools. I absolutely recognise that local authorities and schools themselves will still be under incredible pressure, as indeed is the Welsh Government's budget. But our commitment is to make sure that we provide the level of protection we can to schools, and we've been able to increase the funding in my budget, which supports that wide range of reforms that I've just been talking about today. Bronwyn Weatherby from LBC, please.
Good morning. You mentioned absenteeism. I believe the latest figures show that 1 in 5 pupils in England are persistently absent. I wondered, how does Wales's figure compare with that, and what is believed to be behind such high levels of absence?
Thank you, Bronwyn. The basis on which the governments in the UK compile data for absence is different, so a direct comparison is not straightforward. What we know in Wales is that the figures compared to the year before have increased, but let's be clear, I don't take much comfort from that. It's a positive trend, but it certainly isn't sufficient. And that's why the work of the attendance task force is absolutely critical. And what we have as part of that is a range of professionals and from a range of agencies. So of course we have education represented in a number of different ways, but we also have representation from health, from social services, and from parents and beyond. And what we are learning is that the underlying reasons for absence for an awful lot of young people are complex. Now, alongside the work of the task force, you'll know that I've changed the guidance in this area so that the support available is deeper and faster, if you like. So for those who have followed this discussion previously, in order to get that support, a young person had to be persistently absent, which is absent for 20% of the time. We've reduced that now to 10% of the time, so that the support is available sooner. But that work of that multi-agency approach is a really important way for us to tackle what is, a very, very worrying situation.
Thank you. And secondly, then, in your opinion as a government minister, how concerned are you that unions may be using undemocratic means to back a candidate for the next First Minister, when whoever is chosen, as you know, will make decisions that affect the entire country? And are you confident that that process of electing the next First Minister is transparent and fair?
Well, Bronwyn, that isn't a question for a Welsh Government press conference, and I've already made a statement and I have nothing to add to that statement. Emma Seith from TS.
Thank you. I was just wondering about the creation of this database of children missing from education. I was just wondering if you could maybe explain why we don't already know who these children are. And do we have any sense of how many children are missing? And when we do know who they are, can you just sort of maybe talk us through what will happen?
Certainly, Emma. This is part of a suite of reforms which we've introduced in relation to children who are educated at home. So part of that has been around the database. We've also introduced new guidance, but also we have in Wales a package of funding which local authorities are able to use to support those who learn at home. Some of that is around access to exam centres. Some of it is around other more direct support. And we've also designed a handbook to support those who choose to educate at home. So this is one part of a broader set of policies in relation to home education. And the purpose of the database proposal is to make sure that local authorities are able to identify those who are educated at home, and then to be able to make sure that they're receiving a suitable education, which is part of their statutory duty.
Just another question, just about the the announcement today about the full range of qualifications for 14 to 16-year-olds. How is the government going to ensure that pupils get sort of access to a good range of those qualifications, given the budgetary problems that schools are facing?
Well, they replace qualifications that are currently being taught in schools. And as I was saying earlier, what they do is provide a more streamlined, updated set of qualifications which reflect the changes to our curriculum in Wales. So in that sense, they're a more focused and streamlined version of what's currently being taught. Obviously, there's a period now of design, the first teaching of the new curriculums, of the new qualifications will be in 2027, first awarding rather. So that is that's the timescale that we're looking at. David Nicholson, Morningstar.
Morning, Minister. On the vocational qualifications, are they not likely to be undermined by the cuts to the apprenticeship budget that's just happened as part of the Welsh Government budget cuts?
No, David, we don't expect that to happen. From 2027, this is part of a suite of an offer which young people will be able to choose from in the vocational space. So they'll be able to choose from VCSEs, which are the qualifications being discussed today, but also foundation qualifications, skills for life and skills for work qualifications, and personal project qualifications. So there's a range of options for young people, and what's being announced today is part of that.
And on the work you were just talking about around attendance and attainment and joining up health and social services with local authorities, I mean, surely part of the issue here is the Conservative Party local management of schools. And wouldn't it make more sense in Wales for the Welsh Government to bring schools back into local authorities so that they can coordinate all these things across the different statutory functions they perform in supporting children?
Different approach in Wales to the approach in England, and schools are delivered by education is delivered by local authorities in Wales, and that is exactly what enables us to have that more joined up approach. You know, there are interventions which the government will do in England which suit the arrangements they have there. Ours are much more joined up here in Wales because of the nature of our school system. So there are opportunities to connect the support that we provide to families. And in the discussions we've had so far in the task force, there's been a real appetite for that, but also recognising the perspective of parents in this. And I think one of the challenges that we are facing is that the approach and the appreciation of the importance of attendance in school has in fact changed as a consequence of learners being at home for periods during COVID. And you know, that is a challenging change for us to grapple with, but there are other aspects as well. And so that multi-agency approach, I absolutely think is the solution to this challenge.
So is that a no to bringing schools out of local management by themselves into local authority control?
Well, they are already in local authority. They provide schools are our system in Wales, David, is very different from the system in England, as you know. Decisions are taken at a school level, but within a very clear framework of local authority control. And I think that is the best way for us to make sure that our young people in Wales get the best schooling. Diolch yn fawr.